Welcome to another round of In the Ring with Termite and Mr. S.
It's going to be a good one. Today we have Dave Weaver with us, who is the president and founder of the Houston Regional Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Did I say that right?
That is it.
Also a retired. Thank you. I practiced many times right before this. We're also an Army veteran and an Air Force veteran, pilot. Am I missing something? I'm sure.
No, you're good. That's perfect.
So he's with us today to speak about what you're doing. You basically formed this. So I want you to first tell a little about what is this chamber and kind of what is the purpose that you've created this thing for, and what is your passion? What are you doing with the chamber here?
Yeah, and what are you trying to accomplish with this? We've already been doing some talking, and it's incredible. So we want them to know what we have found out and what you're doing. This is awesome, and thank you for doing it.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. It's an honor to be here. And when you called the other day to say, "Hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast," I was stoked because we actually met maybe about 5 years ago at another keynote speech that you were giving to the Department of Safety. So thank you for that. I'm like, oh, okay, I know this guy. Great speech back then too. So we are the Houston Regional Veterans Chamber. We've been around now almost 2.5, 3 years. And it has been an absolute skyrocket of a growth. But we started it because I wanted the camaraderie of veterans and business owners, like think very differently, especially the veteran business owners. And so I wanted to find them, and I had a hard time, even as a veteran, finding them. So I'm like, okay, what's out there for veteran-owned businesses to actually come together? And it really wasn't an ecosystem. So
you saw a need.
I saw an absolute need. And so my day job on the outside is I have my own financial practice, and really I wanted just to kind of leverage the veteran community to kind of have that camaraderie.
Build a network.
Right. But it was more just, hey, how do we think better? How do I help you grow? I couldn't find it. So I'm like, okay, let's start something.
It's almost a continuation of family, because I'm a military brat. I was not in the military, but I grew up in that. And when you're in the military, it is like a family. Now you get out of the military, the family kind of just evaporates. So you're trying to rebuild that.
Correct. And here in Houston, we don't have the privilege of really having a military bases, right? So not San Antonio, not Dallas or anything like that, where there's a little bit more of a military presence. We got a smaller military presence on Joint Reserve Base Ellington, down in League City, South Houston area. But really, there's no really big military presence here. So the veterans kind of go to the wayside a little bit. That thought of from this vantage point. So really wanted to bring, this is what the chamber is about, is now the mission is really to grow and build a robust, vibrant ecosystem that they can plug into.
No military presence here. However, you've got all these veterans. I mean, we've got so many veterans. It's incredible.
To your point, we live in Houston. We live in the second largest veteran population in the country, only second to LA.
I think we'll take this time right now and just say, veterans, thank you.
Thank you to the veterans.
You mean everything to us. God bless you. Thank you for everything you do for us, and we love you.
And we thank you personally here. So you've served 2 different branches of the military, which I have not met anybody that's done.
I haven't either.
I haven't. I'm not sure. We'll hopefully get in a little bit more how you did that, but I don't want to cut off. So as far as creating this, we were talking about some statistics before the show started. The 4%, and a lot of people's view of a veterans type of organization, and the more of what people perceive. And tell me a little bit about more what you're trying to paint that picture. And
well, there really, when you look at the entire veteran population, really from PTS to homelessness to unemployed,
the things we hear about,
the things that you hear about, right?
Really, it's the only thing you do hear about.
That's the only thing that you do hear about. You're absolutely right, Termite. And so what we're trying to change the paradigm of the message, change to a success message. Right now, the recruiting numbers are down for the military. We want to change that. We want to share the success stories of veteran-founded companies, veteran business owners that are doing some amazing work. And if we, because really the veteran that is not doing so well really only represents 4 to 6% of the veteran population at large. So if you're talking a very large, you're talking maybe out of every 100, you're talking maybe 4 to 6 veterans. Well, what about the 96% of veterans that are doing some amazing work, that are VPs of companies, owners of businesses, that are doing some amazing work? We want to share the success stories.
Sure.
And so we want to change that thinking, so that way, if we do that really, really well, the population can shift their mindset to the success veterans. But if we do that really well, right, that maybe that 4 to 6% will go down to 1% because we've got now more veterans going. If that guy can do it, if that Marine could do it, that Navy guy can do it, man, I can do that too. How do I get started? Yeah. What do I need to do? How do I get plugged in? How do I pick myself back up? Right? In the ring, you get knocked down. How do I get back up?
Exactly.
You just got to do it.
You just got to do it, but you got to have a role model.
That's right.
So let's create more military veterans that are role models.
Role models. Yeah. Wow.
I think it's cool. I want to thank you personally for what you've done, and just visiting with you has been so exciting. And so I like the fact of flying. I love the fact that you've flown a C-130 and the helicopter, the Apache. Mm-hmm. All right. Start off with the helicopter. Tell us about it.
So you want me to go backwards?
Which one was start?
Okay, start with the C-130.
Start at the beginning.
Yeah, start at the beginning. Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, the beginning started with me, Air Force ROTC at a University of Central Florida, Orlando, and then wanting to be really part of
is that where you're from?
That's where I grew up.
Okay.
That's where I grew up and went to college. And so I've always been in a military mindset. My dad was a medic in the Army. My grandfather before that. So I'm coming from a military family. But I wanted to become a commissioned officer. And so I always was gunning for my wings. So I had an alternate pilot slot out of ROTC, but it didn't drop. So they said, well, you can be this, or a navigator. So I'm like, okay, well, it's still flying. Let's get in there. Let's get some aviation background, things like that. So I said, let's go and be a nav. So I went over to Randolph Air Force Base, San Antonio, and I became I went through nav school, and then I became a RC-135 navigator for Omaha, Nebraska, Offutt Air Force Base. And so that RC-135 is really a signal collection aircraft. And so we were helping the electronic order of battle, collecting on radars, collecting on surveillance and toasters, if you want to say that, and everything else in between. And we would actually help SOF, or Special Operations Forces, actually walk onto targets. But the RC-135, my timing was all off. So I was always trying to get to pilot training. But man, I was either deployed all the time or, it just didn't fit. So I found a guard unit for C-130s out of Charlotte, and about 6 months after I moved over to the Charlotte Air National Guard, their manning document changed from 12 airplanes down to 10 airplanes, and so I literally missed out on that pilot slot that I was supposed to get at that time.
Keep missing it.
So I kept missing it. Again, knocked down. So
what
am I going to do, right? So I became a full combat C-130 navigator. Got 6 combat drops out of myself. Flew over to Iraq. I've been over to Korea with that bird. I've been over to Afghanistan. Bagram is where we did a bunch of airdrops out of. To different various places. So really, as a nav, to have 6 combat drops is pretty cool. And those targets were awesome, and I had some good times with that. And I love the C-130s. Absolutely love the birds. I wanted to fly it. Absolutely wanted to fly it.
So I grew up in the military. I'd see the C-130s at air shows, and I got to be honest, as a kid, they weren't as impressive. But now when you learn about the technology and what they can do, tell us, what's so impressive about the C-130? Why do you love it?
It is an austere operations bird, as we would call it. It's rugged, it's capable, it's maneuverable. Some of the amazing things
it's a flying tank.
It's a flying tank in the sense of the shell, right? And super. maneuverable. So when you do
that's
like
not
an
what
assault,
I picture.
like
I
an
don't
assault,
see this thing as maneuverable, but you're saying this thing is.
We land on rock runways. We land in the grass. Bumping things, curved shaped runways. Absolutely, it's absolutely amazing. Take off, land in
Plane
short
that
runways,
large, yeah.
and take off in short distances, and be able to get the beans and bullets and materials to the battlefield.
To the field.
Yes, and that's what the C-130 is about.
Now, before we go further, you hit a place in Orlando, Florida. All right. Do you remember Apache Road?
Yes.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the little stadium that was on the end of it? A little small one. It only seat maybe 1,000 people.
Okay.
I fought there.
You did?
Yeah, and that used to be our training camp. When I had my first pro fight, that's where I trained.
Nice.
It was in Orlando, Florida. Hungry Bear, you remember that?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, some good food. And had some of the most wonderful times of my life in Orlando, Florida. The people are just wonderful there. Last one, I'll close it on this part. You remember the Space Mountain?
Oh, yes, I definitely remember Space
the Disney
Mountain.
ride.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Pete Ashlock from Orlando, Florida, built that.
Okay.
And anyway, Pete Ashlock and my dad were partners in the boxing. So I got to go to Disney World a lot. And
that's cool.
Anyway, but I love it over there. Okay, now, go ahead.
You said, so Disney World, you were basically doing some of the training the same way with the Astros, because the Astros actually train during their summer season in Kissimmee, Florida.
Yes. Yeah, we went there and we used to, am I saying it right? Appalachia.
Yep.
We would go, and let me give you this vision. We're here at the stadium, a little small stadium that Pete Ashlock owned. We would start running right there at Pete Ashlock's house, big house right over here. He was a cowboy. And anyway, we would take off running through the orange groves. And we would, if we wanted to stop and pick an orange, we just would. And we would run a few miles into the orange grove or down the Appalachia Road, and then we'd come back. Oh, it's so incredibly beautiful.
It sounds like you got some great memories there.
And this is where you grew up.
And that's where I grew up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, man, I miss it. And had some great times there.
That's cool. That's cool.
So all from you doing C-130, and then what was the next?
So I became too old to go to pilot training now for the Air
Okay.
Force
Now,
at age 30.
At age 30, you were.
I had to have
Age 30, age out.
I had to either age out or I had to have a general's waiver. So I didn't know a general at that time that would provide a waiver. So I found another way, and one of my Army buddies and a helicopter pilot said, "Hey, you ever thought about going to the Army?" And I'm like, "No, not really." But he said, they do have a pilot training, so why don't you at least look at it, or explore it? So I did, and come to find out, their age is 34 at the time, and I'm like, "Let's do this." So I applied, and I got picked up. When I interviewed and passed the test and everything, that I scored very high on it. One of the highest that they've ever seen.
Impressive.
It was
Made you feel good.
It made me feel good, but man, I studied. And
So
because
it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy.
You wanted it really
I
bad.
wanted it bad. And
That's the messages I love.
You had to pay a price to get it.
the price was overstudy, absolutely. And so when that happened and they sent me to pilot training, literally, they said, "Hey, we want you as a pilot, as a Apache pilot, because of all your background with the aviation." So now at this point, I've got about 2,000 hours as a navigator. I've been in theater 7 times now.
Wow.
I've
And you have commercial pilot kind of on the side at the same time.
I'm a commercial rated pilot on the outside, as with my twin rating, my instrument rating. So I've got about maybe at that point almost 1,000 hours as a private pilot and a commercial pilot. So really, flying was in my blood, and flying was what I wanted to do. And I wanted my military aviator wings. I didn't care how I got them. Let's just get them.
You're getting them.
I'm getting them. So
It's that drive. It's that determination.
Oh, it was drive, right? Absolutely. So, man, the Army's very different. So, literally,
How so? How so?
I could say all kinds of things on this one, but the Army is just a different breed because of they go in sheer numbers. The Air Force they act more like business type of strategies, things like that. They're more in the weeds from an Army perspective, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a mentality difference. There is a way to lead difference in the Army versus the Air Force.
Sure.
But there's a time and place.
They have their purposes.
They have their purpose. There's a purpose for that.
That would make sense.
And that's definitely wasn't what I was.
You had to learn that.
I had to learn it. Literally, I had to take off because I went from I went into the Army as a senior captain, but the next day I actually reverted to a warrant officer 1. So literally,
stepping back.
I took a step back. But my wings were more important to me than the rank.
You had a bigger goal.
My vision was way out there.
So sometimes you got to step back to get to where you want to go forward.
Right? It's the be able to pull back a little bit, get your stance, and then go hard at it.
I love the fact that you're talking about vision, because on so many times that we've done this is people had a vision, and if you can see it, you could probably achieve it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I say that the converse is true. If you cannot see it, you will not achieve it.
You won't achieve it.
You have to see what you're going toward.
Well, yeah. If you look for something specific, you'll find it.
That's true, whether it be negative or positive.
Negative or positive, you'll find it.
Go ahead.
So on the Apache, tell us about it. That is so cool. The fact that you've
the Apache is an awesome.
Completely different from the C-130. Obviously, this thing's a mean machine.
Yes, it's a flying tank. People have a misperception of the Apache that they think it's fast. It's actually one of the slowest airframes in the actual arsenal of the other helicopters.
So speed is not its strength.
The speed is definitely not its strength, but the strength is it's a flying tank. It's got multiple different redundant systems, so it can take a beating and still be in battle, still protect the very
core
important
functions,
functions and get back home safely, right? But it can rain fire.
And it has some pretty mean rounds. I think
it definitely has. It definitely is that.
You brought some here. We're going to show these to the folks now. Everybody that's just listening to us and not on audio, not video, we are showing the rounds that the Apache fires. Tell us about these things, Dave.
So that's called a sleeve. It has 11 rounds, and that comes out of one of the ammo cans, and it's actually fed into the belt-driven 30 mic or 30 millimeter gun that's in front of the Apache. That follows your eye from the cockpit, and this is what. And
how many rounds does this sucker fire?
Well, we've had some limitations, and I
don't know how much of this stuff you can share.
Yeah. So there's some limitations on how many rounds, but we would usually fire anywhere from a 10 to 20 round burst at a time. And then you'd have some limitations on how many rounds, how many times you'd fire it the heat would melt the barrel.
Sure.
And you don't want to go into a gunfight with a bent barrel.
No.
Right?
So that's all part of the training. You have to learn
all part of the training.
You just can't fly crazy. You got to think about all these different aspects.
The flying is second nature. You can't think about flying anymore.
Right. That has
because it's a weapon system. It's a fully integrated weapon system. You're there to really engage the weapon system to be an effective battle piece on the battleground. To save the guys that are on the ground on a tick or troops in contact, or it's to actually do a bunch of damage on a forward operating target that you need to make a way for a convoy or an assault that's coming. So you want to prep the battleground. So again, you want to get their heads down or things like that. So this is one of the ways it rains fires. It has also some rockets and then also the Hellfire missiles.
Wow.
So this could be called the kick butt machine.
Absolutely.
10 times over.
AKA.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm sure you got tons of stories that you can just share, and we go on for hours about that kind of stuff. Anything particular stand out in terms of a moment of glory?
A moment of glory. Well, two, if I may. One was actually going to pilot training, getting through, having a no quit, no failure attitude, studying all the time, going through all of it. So the day before graduation, I come to find out I had become a honor graduate of the flight school for the year. The next step out of that was the following day. I'm showing up thinking, oh, honor graduate, great. I'm somewhere near the second row. Well, come to find out, I'm actually the distinguished honor graduate out of 73 pilots. And my dad got to pin on my wings.
That's a moment.
That was a moment, right?
Yeah.
To pin on my. I earned, a distinguished honor, being a distinguished honor graduate, and so that was an absolute moment in my wing. That's a gold medal, really. It is.
Yeah.
But it took 2.5 years of just sheer grind and momentum.
You paid the price.
I paid the price,
You
right?
paid
I
the
didn't
price.
go out that nights. I overstudied. I knew my 5 and 9s or my limitations and my emergency procedures, hands down. I didn't fail a check ride or anything like that. It was a no-fail situation for me. This is one shot. I have one shot to make it through pilot training. It's not like I'm young.
Right.
I'm still young.
that.
I'm still and I'm still in my prime at my 30s. But to the military, you're an old man.
Yeah.
The second thing is, when you're engaging the Apache is really to become, fully mission capable and being able to, okay, I'm ready to go into battle with it and, make things happen and being able to fly in formation and things like that. One of the hardest things about flying the Apache that most people, because really it's a very limited population that ever gets to fly the Apache, is that you are flying with your right eye in a camera with a heads-up display that is literally close as my glasses is to my eye, but it has a video and it has a heads-up display inside the right eye. The left eye has what we would consider naked, and it's looking inside the cockpit. So during pilot training, it gives you a massive headache because you have what they call binocular rivalry. Your eyes are switching from left to right, to left to right, to left to right.
And you got to just train for that.
So you train, to like take in this 3-dimensional information in a monochromatic type green, it looks green,
right.
Grayscales, information and discern what it is. And engage the target or engage the flights or land at night in the middle of trees, be able to, to finesse that machine around with that type of, equipment is ultimately satisfaction because you're like, this is something that I'm able to control at night, no moon, no light, but yet, man, I can see.
Yeah. Is the Apache the one that sounds really cool?
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
That's the one. Because there's another one that you can't even hear. It can land beside you, and then you won't even hardly know it's there. I don't know which one it's called or whatever, but the Apache has got that really cool.
Yeah,
rumble.
There's a cool rumble, but it also depends on if you are upwind or downwind. We can usually engage a target almost 8 clicks out or 8 miles out.
Okay.
So you ain't gonna see us coming.
Wow.
And if we're coming, if we're upwind of you, you're gonna hear us. But if we're downwind and we're coming up, you're not gonna hear us.
Wow.
So that's what we're trying to do is again try to be able to sneak around either a mountain or trees or kind of get in behind things and buffer
Strategic.
up against it and then pop up so you can take in the battlefield and engage and then back out you go.
Wow.
But yeah, the Apache can be get in, get out, right? There's no need to linger.
Well, you are clearly passionate and obviously accomplished, so I could see how that carries over into you wanting to bring that into the veterans group that you're doing. Talk a little bit more about, I think there's a lot of different things you're doing in the community. Can you name a few events?
Yes, absolutely. There's definitely some big events out there that we are hosting. So it is the Veterans Business Career and Employment Expo that is happening at the George R. Brown, September 22nd and 23rd. This is a huge awareness tool for the veteran-owned businesses here in your community. And so we're expecting around 200 exhibitors, 140 veteran-owned businesses, 70 veteran-friendly employers. So if you're an employer and you want to be an exhibitor, hey, sign up for the Veterans Business Expo, and you can go to HoustonVeteransBusinessExpo.com. That's how you can find that one. I'll give you the actual
tell us
flyer.
some of your other. We're going to post these when we'll put them in below.
Okay.
With links. Maybe where can people follow you? Tell us about some of your social media channels and.
Okay, we'll do. So the other one is we have a Veterans Business Marketplace, which is a 4,800 square foot tent at Wings Over Houston, highlighting 60 veteran-owned businesses in the middle of Wings Over Houston, which Wings Over Houston is going to be 14, 15 October this year.
Okay. So
come out and see the air show. The Thunderbirds are flying. It's a massive event of veterans and some of the warbirds. The Apache is usually out there in static display. Then and the C-130 is usually there too. Then we're going to have a Tools and Troops Drive. The Tools and Troops Drive is 13 through 18 November. We're going to raise a bunch of tools, new tool sets to give to hopefully 100 veterans that's in the workforce or to grow the capacity of a veteran-owned business. So that'll be, and we're going to do a cornhole tournament on the 17th of November. So look for that. And those are some of the bigger events of awareness. So some of the things that we is on the chamber site. So HOUveteranschamber.org.
Okay. This is you named a lot of dates. Can they all be found on this?
They can all be found under events on that page.
Excellent.
All right. So we have a veterans business directory. So if you want to support, you can support a veteran business owner today. And we have a full veteran business directory. It's still continuing to grow. We also, on our website, we have a veterans business interactive map. We're literally mapping out the veteran-owned businesses, not only here in Texas, but nationwide.
Oh, wow.
So as we find out more veteran-owned businesses, we are putting them on the map. It's absolutely, it's a project, but it's awareness tool. If we can support the veterans, the veteran business owners, right? The economic impact is almost a 5 to 6 factor. So if you spend $100,000 in the veteran business community, it has a $500,000 to $600,000 impact, right? Wow. And you just got to now start doing the numbers, right? So millions, or 100 million. Now you see the economic impact that the veteran business community really. So we're wanting to help really get the veteran business owners counted and measured in some significant ways in the communities, right in your backyard. So go out and will you pass a big box store to go buy from a veteran-owned business? We live in America. We wouldn't be in business. We wouldn't have the opportunities, the freedoms we have if it wasn't for a veteran. So now you're helping a veteran's family directly by supporting a veteran-owned business.
Yeah. So if people out there want to help support, a lot of people hear these stories like, well, how can I help? You've really named it. This is how you can help. Get engaged. Look to see who these businesses are. I'm sure they can provide different services or products.
Absolutely,
that people
need.
Under
the sun, from stickers to banners to guys that are doing some amazing commercial AC work and even pipelines. There are restaurants that are veteran owned that you can cater from. So there's multiple ways you can actually directly impact the veteran business
and the
owners.
Quality of work. That's the kind of thing I like to emphasize.
Yes.
Our operations manager at my company is a veteran, and the quality of work that he churns out
is incredible.
So you're not just buying from a veteran, woe is me, I just want to help them. These guys are trained to be the best, to defend our country, to keep, all of us have these freedoms. And now I would imagine it's kind of hard as a veteran to go from doing something so meaningful to maybe now you're doing AC work. Well, they're going to put all that passion into AC work just like they did before. You get that level of quality. So it's just a whole, I like that element of it.
Oh, absolutely. And you ask anybody out there that has, that is a vendor of a company, and hey, how do you like having veterans work for you? Man, they love it. They get things done. They take pride in their work. They're disciplined. They show up on time.
Yeah,
that's a big one,
and that's a huge one, right? Yeah. And so we want to be able to highlight that type of stuff. To highlight the successes. How do we change the success for? Share the success messages of some of these veteran-founded companies.
You mentioned about recruiting, that the recruiting numbers are low.
Yes.
I would attribute a lot of that to, like you said, the majority of what we hear about helping veterans is the 4 to 6%. It sounds kind of negative. So if I'm going to go recruit, I'm like, I don't know if I want to end up like one of these guys.
There you go, right?
You know,
So
hey,
I don't want to be a broken veteran when I come out.
Right, nobody does,
All the veterans seem like they're broken. No, they're not.
Perception.
No.
That's a perception, right?
Yeah.
There's many a successful veteran out there in the workforce, out there doing some amazing work.
Yeah.
We just usually have our heads down. We are getting the mission done. You know, it be that we're employed or be that we are a veteran-owned business. Hey, I don't need those designations. That guy needs it more than I'm just going to get this work done. Hey, what's next? What's next? What's next? Mm-hmm. So really, that's one of our big challenges is having veterans self-identify as a veteran-owned business.
Because they don't want handouts.
They don't want handouts. They don't want your charity.
Make it happen.
But they do want opportunities. Give them a message. Give them a message.
And they've been trained to not only do it, but to do it well.
Self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Make it
Self-sufficient, right?
Yeah.
I can do this. As a veteran, the one thing that I don't like doing is asking for help.
Yeah.
Right? But if we've created an ecosystem, a robust and vibrant ecosystem for the veteran business owner to plug into, now he's surrounded by like-minded veterans and passionate patriots that can be part of the veteran chamber that say, hey, let's how'd you do this? How'd you do that? But that still have the camaraderie of the Navy or the Marine Corps, or just veteran services in general, right? And get them to, come out, but yet also build that camaraderie aspect of this. And we band together.
The family.
We can do more together than we can apart.
I agree.
That's
Now,
right.
you mentioned your website. Say that again. It's
HOUveteranschamber.org, or you can look up Houston Regional Veterans Chamber on Google. It'll pop up.
now.
And that's how they can contact you.
They can contact me through there. You can look up us on the social media, but Facebook and LinkedIn.
We'll put the social media in there, but just go ahead and just verbalize them.
And it's the same, basically, HOU Veterans Chamber.
And that's on Facebook.
LinkedIn. The expos on LinkedIn, things like that, and absolutely follow us, but also watch all the different highlights that we are doing of the successful veteran businesses that are showcasing at the expo, but also that are joining the chamber. Watch that map continue to populate as we continue to find them. Right now, there's probably roughly about 1,500 veteran-owned businesses on there
that you've identified.
I've identified, and that's nationwide. But the SBA has told me that there's 65,000 veteran-owned businesses here in the Houston region.
So you still got some.
So
more
I
work
got
to
a
do.
lot of work to do. So if you've got a veteran-owned business that you know of, please get them plugged into the ecosystem. We can get them resources, access to capital, access to education, access to resources to grow and scale their capacity to do more business,
And that is your
impacting the
passion.
patient. Yes.
Awesome. Well, Dave, thanks so much. We've gone over our time, but these are just such good stories.
this
I wish
is
we had more
incredible.
time.
Yeah.
So
My
I'm
pleasure.
looking forward to you helping, some of our viewers and different veterans. And thanks again for your work. Thank you for serving our country.
My pleasure.
you
Thanks for
very
paying
much.
your taxes.
Yes, sir. That's what
I
we
couldn't
do.
have done it without it.
Well, obviously going over. You want to do our tagline?
Yeah, we have a little tagline that we do that. This is going to hit home to you, but we always leave it and close it by telling everybody to keep their guard up. So we'd like for you to join us.
Okay, yes.
And tell everybody, keep your guard
Keep
up.
your guard
Keep
up.
your guard up, always.